So in 2022, I entered two championships, the first one being the British Supercar Championship. This consisted of 3 rounds at Cadwell Park, Anglesey and Donington. Donington also hosted the Grand Prix event on the last race on the Sunday. The second championship that I was to enter was the Supercar Super Series, which consisted of 5 rounds at Silverstone Grand Prix, Cadwell Park, Snetterton, Anglesey, although I didn't attend this round, and Alton Park. The aim for this year was to try and get a championship win after only just missing out last year by a couple of points in my debut season. So my first race of the year was at Silverstone, and we were lucky enough to get to use the full circuit, which was something to tick off my wish list. The weekend didn't start off the best. While catching the leader in race 1 and setting the fastest lap, my exhaust sensor snapped off from the exhaust, causing me to retire. I managed to bounce back for race 2 and took my first win of the season and set the new club lap record. Race 3, however, was an interesting race, as the track was wet but starting to dry. I decided to go on wets after looking at the track just before going to the assembly area. Starting on the wets gave me the confidence to push from lap 1, and I managed to pull over a 10-second gap to the kart behind, before then just maintaining the gap and searching for the wet patches on the track trying to keep my wets cool. I managed to take my second win of the weekend and left round 1 leading the Super Series. Next up, we travelled to Cadwell Park, one of my personal favourite tracks and what I would class as my strongest track. This was for round 2 of the Super Series. The main aim for this weekend was to get some good results but also test for the following weekend as we were back at Cadwell for the first round of the British Championships. The weekend started well, with qualifying first in class by 5 seconds. Race 1 was a lights to flag victory and winning in class by over 25 seconds. I also had a really good race with a 450. Unfortunately, after sitting and waiting in the assembly area for at least half an hour, our last race was cancelled due to an on-track incident in the race before, leaving the track too dangerous to race on and not enough time to clear the track. This, however, gave me the overall win for the weekend and I extended my championship lead. We were lucky enough for the club to organise a rerun of the cancelled race at Snetterton at the next round. We returned to Cadwell Park for the following week for the first round of the British Championship, and feeling quite confident from the previous weekend's results, I was hoping for a good result. It was going to be my first time racing the 2021 British Champion, but I knew I would be challenging for the win. After showing good pace in practice and being the fastest, qualifying didn't quite go to plan. As I was starting my first flying lap, I tried to change gear and realised I couldn't. I nursed the car to the pit lane to find out one of the seat supports had snapped, which was causing the gear lever to get stuck. With some help from the mechanics on the pit wall, I managed to get back out on track, but only for the seat to fall out of the support straight away. I still managed to put a lap in, but it wasn't enough for pole. Race 1 was up next, and I was determined to make up for the bad quali session. I got a good start and managed to get into the lead by the first corner. I concentrated on staying out of trouble with the other cars, but also trying to put in some good lap times and not get held up for too long by the other classes on track. I remember having a look behind me to see a massive gap to second, so all I had to do was keep the car on track for the win. Checker flag was out, and it was my first British Championship win and a redemption from quali. Race 2 was next, and I was starting first in class this time. I got a good start and held the lead with a decent gap to second. The race went on, I was being held up by a 250. I managed to get past him on the brakes, but he drove straight back past me and then was very slow going onto the back straight. That second place managed to get a run on me. We took the last lap board and I knew I only had one chance left, and that was through the top of the gooseneck and down to Mansfield. I dropped off from the leader to allow me to carry more corner speed, and with that I managed to get the run and outbrake the leader. Then I defended the remaining of the lap to take my second win of the championship and secure me the overall meeting win despite the result in the next race. Ready for race 3, and I got a decent start, but the leader managed to put a couple of cars between us. All I had to do was finish the race for more championship points, so I didn't want to do anything silly. The driver in third gave me a good race and we swapped places a few times. As soon as we started battling, I knew I wouldn't be able to catch the leader, so it was just a matter of trying to see if I could still finish second. Race ended, and I finished second, which gave me the overall win and my first British Championship trophy. We left round 1 leading and feeling confident. We then made the long 300-mile trip from one side of the country to the other for the very scenic Anglesey circuit. This was a new circuit for me to learn and one that I wasn't very familiar with. It didn't take me too long to get used to, with promising pace showing from the practice sessions. On to race 1, and I started second. I got a really good start and moved into the leading class. As we got to the straight, second place passed me and took the lead. I was struggling for straight line speed all weekend, and you can watch the 125 pull away from me. As we got to the top of the hill, third tried to outbrake me round the outside, but couldn't make it stick. As we got to the back straight on lap 2, I lose second place on the straight again, with a straight line speed just showing. As we got to the braking point, I send it back up the inside. Lap 3 and the same thing again, lose a place on the straight, but brake later and hold it round the outside. By lap 5, I was 3 seconds behind the leader. A couple of laps later, and the 4 minutes remaining on the clock, I had got the gap down to 1.6 seconds. 1 minute left, and starting the penultimate lap, I was right behind the leader. He'd made a mistake into the last corner, which gave me a run, and I managed to go up the inside and hold it through the first corner. I knew I would struggle for straight line speed, so I didn't defend and tried to get the best exit I could. As we got to the back straight, he drove past me, so I braked as late as I could to try and gain some time. At this point, I'm thinking I'm too far behind to get him back. As we start the last lap, I'm not as close as I was the lap before, so I know I had to do something special. I got a good run through the first corner and tried to do a block pass into turn 2, hoping it would slow him down on the exit. He managed to still get past me, and he started to pull a gap, even though I was in his toe. I catch him up on the brakes, but can't quite get close enough. I tried to get in his toe along the straight, and I start to think it's too late, but then I decide it's now or never, and send it up the inside. I defended the exit, but he has so much more speed he gets past me again. I brake as late as I can, and he manages to outbrake me, but also himself, and I gain the place back and take another race win, extending my championship lead. I was very lucky to finish the race, as my wheel had actually started to come loose, and I had to pull over after the finish to make sure it wasn't going to fall off. Race 2 was a write-off. As we left the assembly area, my cart just didn't want to run. It just kept popping and spluttering. I tried to get it to clear on the warm-up lap, but it didn't work. So all I wanted to do was finish the race to secure some points for the championship. I managed to limp the cart round to the finish. For race 3, we decided to try a different engine, as we couldn't find an issue from the previous race, and we were lacking speed, so we thought the safest option was to swap engines. As race 3 started, I had made a good start, but as we went into the first corner, there was an incident ahead that took out quite a few drivers. As the lap went on, I got passed by the number 89 down the straight, but made it back past on the brakes. Then the safety car was deployed to help clear up the incident from turn 1. Race restarted, and as I got to the top half of the track, I went to change gear, only to find out the gear linkage had snapped, meaning I was stuck in gear and had to stop. I didn't want to cause any more damage, so I decided to pit and retire from the race. That was the end of round 2, and I left Anglesey still leading the championship. For the next round, we was a little closer to home, at a local track, Snetterton Park. Now, I haven't got much footage from this weekend, as my case snapped in 2 of the races, so I'm going to just show some highlights from the sessions, but I'll tell you how the weekend went. We knew that Snetterton was going to be the hardest round to get some wins, as the track is so fast and we'd been struggling for straight line speed all year. At Snetterton, you only actually have to brake for 5 of the corners. So we started off the weekend running an engine in for the first practice session, but in that session I was still having the same issue as race 2 at Anglesey, but I finished the session just to get some time on the engine. After changing loads of different things, we managed to sort the issue out and it was ready for qualifying. In qualifying, it seemed really hard to get a clear lap with a lot of karts on the track, but I managed to qualify second. For race 1, I had a really good start and even managed to get into the lead by the first corner, and led for some of the race, but I only managed to hold on to second by the end. We then had the Cadwell rerun for the race that got cancelled, and I managed to take the win in that race with quite a comfortable margin, and even finished 6th overall out of all the different classes on the track. We then had 2 more races on the Sunday, and I finished second in both of them, losing out for the win on the run to the line on the last lap of the last race. We left Snetterton still leading the championship, but the gap had got smaller to second place. We headed to Donington Park for the last round of the British Championship. I came into this round leading the championship, but by a very small margin. All I had to do for the two championship races was finish at least second in both to take the championship. The Donington GoPro curse returned as well, making it 2 GoPros lost in 2 visits to the track. So again, my footage is very limited, but I will show you the highlights from race 1 and the clips from the live stream. I started in third after struggling to put a clean lap in qualifying, but I knew I had enough pace to challenge for the second place that I needed. The race started and I got quite a poor start, dropping me back from second place. As we go through the first corner, there is a kart spinning ahead, which slows me down and allows third place to pass, and this drops me to fourth. At this point I've realised if I still want to win the championship, I'm going to have to fight back quickly and try and overtake at least 2 drivers now to get back to second place. A couple of corners later and I'm right behind second and third, and I follow the driver through in front to take third place. As we get to the loop, there are a lot of karts everywhere, and I'm trying to keep up with the driver in front as well as the driver in fourth. Number 333 comes up the inside of me on the brakes, and I keep the power on and stay on the outside. There's only a tiny gap, but I stay committed and go side by side. I know the next corner is a left-hander, so I now have the inside and take control of when to brake. I keep the inside and get the move done. Now I have to catch second place. I manage to catch up second, and I see him run very fast into the corner, and by the exit are now up the inside. As we get to the straight, I know he will have the straight line speed to get past me again. I back off before the chicane to carry more speed through, and I start to catch up. I get up the inside and then brake later and gain the pace back. From here onwards, I start to put some quick but consistent laps in, and I start to get a gap. I maintain this gap till the end to take second place and keep the championship fight alive and down to the last race. Race 2 was next, and I was starting in third, so I knew I had some work to do from the start. I got a really good start and moved up to second place. A kart had spun at the first corner, which slowed some people down, and I was now on the back of first place. A red flag was waved to stop the race due to an incident at the back of the field at turn 1, and we all returned to the pit lane. The track was then cleared, and the race was restarted. I had made another good start, keeping third place, but there was 4 of the 125s right together. A couple of corners later, and I had made the move, past the 2 drivers in front and into the lead, but as we got to the straight, I got passed again. All I needed to do was at least finish second, so I stuck with the leader as long as possible and kept being consistent, making sure I made no mistakes. I had third place closing in and sitting right behind me. As we started the last lap, I had less than a 1-second gap to third. Crossed the line in second place, meaning I had won the 125 British Supercar Championship and achieved a childhood dream. We had one more race left for the weekend, which was a GP plate. For me, this was going to be a bit of a fun race, knowing we'd just won the championship, and it didn't matter what the outcome of this race was. In the GP plate race, I had made a really good start, and on the first lap, made a move for the lead. I led for a lap or so before being passed on the straight again, and then finished in second place. For the final round of the year, we travelled to Alton Park. It was only a 1-day meeting, so we had qualifying and 2 races. Last time I was at Alton, it was my first ever time in a supercar, so I was looking forward to seeing how much I had improved. We didn't do the test day, as coming into the final round, all I had to do was finish 1 race to win the championship. For qualifying, the track was wet. It was my first time in the wet at Alton, so I spent the session just learning where I could push the kart more and where was slippery. For most of the session, there was a section of the track under yellow flags, so you couldn't overtake, and that held me up massively. But I still managed to qualify second. For the first race, the track was still wet, so it was very easy to make mistakes. All I wanted to do was get the finish. I was starting to catch the leader lap by lap, but then I felt the tyres starting to get too hot, so I decided to back it off and bring it home safely. I crossed the line in second, which meant I had won the 125 Super Series Championship. Now for the second race, and the last race of the year. It didn't matter how the race went, so I went out to get the win, but I knew it was going to be hard, as I was massively lacking top speed compared to the other 125. I started third, and on the first lap as we got to the hairpin, I felt a lot of grip, so I went back on the power and drove around the outside of the 97 car to take second place. The goal was to now push as hard as I could to see if I could close up the 2 second gap to the leader. A couple of laps later, and I had managed to close that gap up. I got right behind the leader on the start straight and went for the move, but I struggled to get the kart stopped and he got me back. As we got to the hairpin, the leader went in a little too fast and touched the grass on the exit, which gave me the lead. As we started the last lap, I knew it was going to be hard to keep the lead with the straight line speed of the other driver. So out of turn 1, I kept the inside, and I watched him try and make the move around the outside, but I go later on the brakes. As we get to the next straight, I know he's going to come past me, so I keep the kart flat out and go around the outside. As we exit the chicane, he gets a run on me, so I stay on the inside, meaning I can control when we brake. I manage to brake later and hold the lead. There is a 250 in front, and I manage to get past, putting a kart between us. But as we get to the top of the hill, he managed to still drive past me. I try and stay as close to the leader on the straight as we head to the last corner. He has a good gap, but I let off the brakes and I carry the speed into the corner, making the move down the inside. It was now a run to the line, and he manages to just get past me again, and he takes the win. But it was an amazing race and a great battle to finish the year and the championship off. I would like to end the video by saying a massive thank you to every single person that has helped and supported me this year. I've achieved a dream of mine since I started racing at the age of 12. The biggest thank you goes to my number one mechanic, my dad. Without you, I'd never achieved any of these championships. A big thank you to all my friends and family that have always been there. Everyone at Karttrack Chroma for covering, and also everyone that comes through the door. You've all been amazing with the support. I'm looking forward to next year's challenge, and I'll be fighting at the front again very soon.